Okay, ladies, before we begin, just a few reminders. With Ag-cademy, you must have at least 80% attendance at 16 out of the 20 sessions to graduate. Attendance is tracked. So it's important that you use the Zoom link that was initially sent to you. Please note that your participation in the academy, as well as graduation, does not mean automatic membership. You still have to apply if you are interested. And for our St. Lucian participants, your graduation certificate can be used as a good agricultural practices certificate, which is required for obtaining a farmer's license in St. Lucia. For our participants in SKN and SVG, we are currently looking towards securing the same recognition for you. In the meantime, the information and skills gained from the program will still be highly valuable to your agricultural journey. For my St. Lucian ladies, our next practical, in-person practical, well, almost like a field trip, is coming up. That information will be shared soon. So ladies, it's almost 10 past and our wonderful facilitator is already there. He was very punctual, so I don't want to hold up the line any further. So let me tell you who is our facilitator for the evening. For this evening, our topic is costing and pricing. And we are graced with the presence of Mr. Jason Badal. He's an international trade economist who is deeply committed to small business development and the empowerment of individuals. He began his journey more than 15 years ago by studying economics, which finally led him to international trade policy. During the past 5 years, he has been actively involved in small business development, specifically export development support, export marketing, market access, and business development. He holds a bachelor's degree in economics and marketing, as well as a master's in international trade policy. Increasing the exports of a number of vital sectors on the island is one of his greatest triumphs thus far. And he's constantly searching for the next major industry to introduce to international markets, sorry. Jason Badal is originally from Grace Viewport, a predominantly agricultural area, and now resides in Savans Bay. So I think that, needless to say, he is an excellent facilitator for this evening's topic, costing and pricing. And as always, I want to encourage you to ask questions, interact, and have fun, learn. So again, our facilitator for this evening, Mr. Jason Badal. Floor is yours.
Thank you very much for the introduction and good night, ladies. It is a pleasure to be with you again. Again, I think I did this last year, so I'm anticipating that this group would be a little bit even more enthusiastic than the last time. Last time, we didn't even have time to finish the presentations. We had so much fun in interaction. In terms of the layout of the presentation, I would like it to be as interactive as possible. So there's no time that I would take to present. You could interrupt me at any point, ask the questions. I do believe that the presentation is supposed to flow with as much discussion as possible. To add to what the moderator said about my introduction, last year when I presented to the ladies, I was at that time the program manager with Export St. Lucia. I have since moved on. I am now the director of trade, business and investment in Montserrat. Although I still reside in St. Lucia, I do a lot of remote work and a lot of traveling. But my passion is really export development and business development. And this is what I've been doing for the past 12 years of my professional journey. I would say that my largest success to date has been the CMOS sector in St. Lucia, where I have been intimately involved for the past 10 years, taking it from a largely artisanal industry to now one of the largest, or if not the largest, agricultural export industry in St. Lucia. So today, while this might sound like a highly accounting area, I want to be as interactive as possible because I do understand that we're talking to a number of women from all the different islands. And as somebody who's been involved in export promotion, I have visited all your islands. I'm pretty sure some of you have seen me before. Some of you have known me, but I do understand the very difficult and uniquely challenging situations in all the islands. Some of them are common among us, and some of them are unique to us. But at the end of the day, we all are from an area, despite the challenges, with fantastic, fantastic products and fantastic stories. We will take a break at approximately 7 o'clock, and then we will see how the rest of the presentation goes. So allow me to start. Somebody just let me know if you could see my screen.
Not yet.
Okay.
I want to remind the ladies that, once you raise your hand, I'll give you permission to speak, but that will be when Mr. Badal says, okay, question. So you could always just raise your hand. Remember your question. If you don't want to type it and you want to speak, well, hopefully that's okay with you, Mr. Badal.
Sure. And if I'm missing any hands, sometimes I don't see it when it pops up. You could just prompt me and let me know.
No problem. I will for sure.
Is the screen visible now?
Yes, we can see the screen.
Okay, great. Okay, so let's jump right into it. Again, ladies, good night. Yes, so just a little breaker. One of my favorite foods is dashin. I think when everybody is looking for the fancy Christmas food, every year I look forward to my stew pork and dashin for Christmas. That's all I want for Christmas. So just something to note. A small phrase to start the day. Price too high, birds won't buy. Price too low, your business won't grow. Price just right, the future is right. And it's very important that we start with this because pricing is one of the most integral parts of business. And right now, we are in a very important juncture in world economics where price is so volatile. Because of the games Mr. Trump is playing, we have seen prices skyrocket sometimes in one area and go down in another area. It's very important that we keep abreast of these things, not only in terms of our own cost of living, but as farmers, producers, agro-processors, it's very, very important that we understand the very basics of pricing. And this session will make you understand the very basics. Is there anybody in here from Antigua? No, I don't think so. Basically, what these three questions are asking, right? In St. Lucia, we complain about the price of coconuts. The price of coconuts sometimes $2, some places $2.50, $2.25. Then you jump over a 30-minute flight to Antigua. The price of coconut goes to $5 EC for a coconut. The very same coconut that we have is $5 EC in Antigua, and they buy the coconuts. We complain in St. Lucia at $2.50. Then you jump from Antigua, another 40 to 45 minutes flight to St. Martin, and the price of a coconut is $5 US. $5 US for a single coconut. That's just to show you that the conditions are different in every territory, but it's the same product. And there are many factors that make these things different. In St. Lucia, no matter where you stand in the island, you could see a coconut tree. I'm pretty sure it's the same in St. Vincent. I'm pretty sure it's the same in other islands. However, it's not so in Antigua. And it's even further away from the truth in St. Martin, where you barely ever see a coconut tree. And if you do see one, there's usually no fruits on the tree, which means that prices are impacted by demand and supply. Most of the coconuts that go to Antigua either come from St. Vincent, Dominica, or St. Lucia. Similarly in St. Martin. So there are other costs that are added on the very basic costs that if you go and pick it in your yard, you would face. So it's very important. And the reason why I started with such a simple scenario is that as farmers, producers, agro-processors, we must understand why costing and pricing matter. They determine your profitability, right? They make sure that understanding costing and pricing, proper costing and pricing, ensure you're making a profit, not just break even and not just losing money. And I will tell you this, I don't want to say my age, but I look like a young man, right, ladies? Growing up, growing up during late primary school, I carried bananas on my head from Woodlands Grace to the nearest pack house to be able to make some money for books. Not many people believe somebody of my age went through this during the green gold period, right? This understanding of this costing is very important because back in those days, a lot of these farmers never understood costing and pricing. All they knew was carry the bananas from the farm to the boat, collect my money, and that's it. Now, granted, this was a very profitable era for St. Lucia, St. Vincent, Dominica. However, we grew up with that mentality that we do not look at the intricacies involved in pricing. A lot of us, I'm pretty sure when the comments are coming in, some of us grow a fruit, a vegetable, we produce a pepper sauce, we make CMOS, and up to now, we don't understand whether we're making a loss or we're making a profit. And that is very, very important because we need to track these things. And another thing that it's important for, it helps you make decisions. So when you don't know your costs, you don't know what to do. So sometimes, and a lot of us, I'm pretty sure a lot of us inside are guilty of this. We have a wonderful product. Let's stick with CMOS. We have a wonderful CMOS drink and we're making money. But every time the money comes in, it goes in the personal coffers. We go to Marcy a little bit more, or we go to KFC. We never really give the business the money, that's it, and take a salary for ourselves. So we never know really and truly what was the true impact of the price of our products. We don't know when to cut back. We don't know when to expand. So all the time, the CMOS is selling, people are happy. This is a wonderful product. So you know what I will do? Instead of buying chicken back, I'll buy chicken breasts. Instead of buying pig feet, now I want to buy sirloin steak. And we never really know, well, you know what? If I had invested some of that profit in a machine, I could have expanded my business tenfold. We don't do that. We don't understand pricing, so we don't understand how that helps us in our decision making. And it also ensures sustainable business. And one of the easiest ways to understand this is that your business is a person and you have to respect the business for what it does. And we must continue. And again, when you look at the very basic structure of farming, farmers in OECS Islands, a lot of us do not. I'm hoping that there are good examples in this group or this cohort of ladies that are here, but we do not treat our farms like a business. We do not treat our processing like a business, and we do a lot of things from the head. So let's understand costs for a little bit. There are two main types of costs. There are direct costs, and I'm sticking to examples using farming. Direct costs are expenses directly responsible or related to producing your product. So you're producing cucumbers, seeds, fertilizer, pesticides, irrigation, labor. All of these are direct costs. These costs may vary based on how much you produce. You might need more fertilizer, you might need more seeds. These are direct costs. Indirect costs, these are expenses that support production but indirectly tied to a specific product. So for example, utility bills, land, if you rent in the insurance, these costs remain the same whether you produce or not. Whether you don't produce anything on this piece of land, when the man say, I want my rent, I want my rent. If you're renting a building for agro-processing, it's the same thing. If you decide that you're sick for the month, the rent is still due. So this is very important that we understand direct costs and indirect costs. There are also another classification of costs. This is fixed costs, versus variable costs. And fixed costs remain the same regardless of production. And that's important because sometimes we want to make an investment and there is a wonderful piece of land available that would suit my expansion of tomatoes, but I don't know how I will cover it. How you deal with it as a fixed cost, because land is a fixed cost, is important because the cost of the loan that you have to pay on that land does not change. So when you start your production and you're producing one tomato, the mortgage on the land is $1,000. You produce 2 tomatoes, the mortgage on the land is $1,000. You produce 1,000 tomatoes, the mortgage on that land is still $1,000. Therefore, it shows that by increasing our production, making more revenue, fixed cost then becomes easier to cover. Variable costs, on the other hand, change with production. So the more tomatoes I put on that soil, the more fertilizer I would need, the more seeds I would need. Therefore, the cost keeps going up. The more I produce, the more I increase production. And at some point, it will reach the point where this is the most I can produce on this soil. This is where you've reached your marginal variable cost. So this is very important. We understand these two costs as we go forward. And now, putting them together, right? Putting them together is where you get your total costs. Total costs, direct costs, plus indirect costs. So since we're using tomatoes, let's stick with tomatoes. Growing tomatoes, what would be our direct costs? Seeds, fertilizer, labor, right? Our indirect costs, there for that same production of tomatoes, equipment depreciation, land, rent. These are our indirect costs. To get that total cost, we add our direct costs plus our indirect costs. It's crucial that we track all costs to ensure you're not underestimating total costs. And there is something called hidden costs. A lot of us, and I'm going to open the floor a bit so we can get some experiences. A lot of us, especially in the beginning of our business, do not pay ourselves any salary. That is one of the most common things that was done in small business. We don't pay ourselves our salary, and we use the business funds for personal funds, and it's all mixed inside there. And therefore, we do not understand or we do not calculate the cost properly. So I'm going to throw it out there. Is there anybody in the group now producing tomatoes? Nobody producing tomatoes. Can you speak up, please, if you are producing tomatoes?
Ladies, just raise your hand and I'll give you permission to speak. If you don't know how to, then you could type into the chat.
Okay, let's use an example. I'm hoping there's somebody. Any lady in here produces CMOS? Oh, hi, it's
Go
cool.
ahead, Kriya. I gave you permission to speak.
Yes.
Yes, which one? Tomatoes, CMOS?
CMOS.
Yes.
We have somebody in the chat saying that they produce tomatoes.
with
Yes,
this,
yes. So I want to, Kriya, since I have you here, I'll use you. Kriya, do you pay yourself a salary in your production?
when I just started, no,
Yeah. So
I did
so
not.
what was the detriment of doing that?
I was not able to make, at the end of the day, when they asked me for a breakdown or a report to say how much money I made in the CMOS for the month, I could not do that when to open a bank account.
Yes, that's a real story. And Kriya, I'm sharing a bit of our history just to make my example. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm just sharing this. I have known Kriya for a few years now. Kriya was actually a mentee to me when I played a role as a mentor in the Youth Economy Agency in St. Lucia. And you have passionate entrepreneurs like Kriya, who's involved in so many different businesses, catering, CMOS, honey, and all that needed sometimes is to understand those very little intricacies of costing. Kriya has now successfully exported her products because she's understood some of those very basic things that we need to do to be successful. And we're going to go into it in the future. But thank you, Kriya. I just wanted to get somebody's example because one of the fundamental problems we have in small businesses, especially in agribusinesses, is that we don't remove our time from what we do. So we sit there in the hot sun for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours, sometimes the whole day. And then we go and we sell, and we never put the wages that I'm supposed to pay myself in the costing, and sometimes we're making a loss. And that is fundamental in what we do. Now, one of the most important things to do when we're doing our pricing and costing is to develop a strategy. How do I price my products? Which strategy should I use? And there are a few of them that you can use, and we are going to go into this right now. One of the first things we can do is called cost plus pricing. That is where you set up a price based on cost plus a markup. So in the previous slides, you saw how we came up with total costs. So sticking with the tomatoes, we've bought our seeds, we've bought our fertilizer, we've bought irrigation equipment, we've paid ourselves labor, we've paid the landlord his rent, we've done all our costs, and we know that this is the total cost. This is how many tomatoes I was able to produce using that cost, right? One of the ways we can develop how to price that product is adding a markup to it. So for example, and you know, especially if you sell to Marcy, that Marcy wants to put their markup, so they come to you and they tell you, I wanted that price, because they know what price they want to sell it, because they've understood the market, they know people are willing to pay X, so they know what markup to add. You must do the same. What is the markup I must add to my costs that I can make a sufficient profit to cover and expand without being priced out of the market? And that is what cost plus prices is. You establish. So one of the fundamental things to know there is that you cover your cost and then you add a markup. And by doing this, you're always sustainable because you're covering your costs, you're not making a loss. And the only way you can do that is by understanding your total costs, which is what we did in the previous slide. Add all your costs, look at your production, and you get your total costs. And then you could add your markup. For some products, it's very small. We have some very basic products that people are not willing to pay high for, and you have it in high volume, you can add 5%, you can add 10%. But if you're producing, and I'm sticking to tomatoes, I love tomatoes. If you have found a way to produce tomatoes during the off season, when nobody has tomatoes, that is where you can put your markup at 30% and 40%. Not necessarily because you want to be greedy and people must come to you, because at that time, all the imported products are also very expensive. So you look at and you come to the come to that in the third point here, where it talks about competitive pricing. But let's move on to the next one. Value-based pricing. So this is where you must be cognizant, you must be aware of your market. And that's very, very, very important. I think later on, if we have time, we will do a little bit of market research guides. But it's very important as an entrepreneur, as a farmer, as an agro-processor, that we understand the market in which we operate. Okay, I'm making an artisanal pepper sauce. I don't have a label yet. I use a plastic bottle. I don't know my shelf life. I don't have nutritional facts, but I have a wonderful homemade pepper sauce, right? What do I do now? What are people willing to pay for something like this when there's Matuks on the shelf and Barons on the shelf and this one from the US on the shelf? All of these are fancy, whatever, but how do I know if people are willing to pay me more for my product because it's artisanally made? It's made using all natural ingredients. The only way we can do this is if we understand the market we operate in. So let's say in St. Kitts, people in St. Kitts love natural products, no preservatives. Therefore, there's a value that is placed on a naturally made product that is different from the ones that are chemically induced and have preservatives to boost the shelf life. Therefore, there is a perception that if I make an all-natural product, I will get a greater value, value-based pricing. So you use that method, especially if you are making a high-value product. And if your product is not high value, the same principle applies. There is not a very high value placed on this. Therefore, I use a very small markup. And the other one here is competitive pricing. So, as I was mentioning earlier, sometimes all you need to do is walk around in the stores. Tomatoes price went up by $2. That means supply might be low. You look at what your competitors are doing. John is $5. Jane is $7. You know what I'll do? I'll position myself in the middle. Or if I want to wipe out them all together because I have large volumes and I can do $4.50 because I still make a profit at $4.50, I do $4.50. All of that is based on what your competitors are doing. You know your competitors, you know what market share they have. If you are competing with global giants, it's different. But if you understand your market properly and you do this simple market research, walk into the supermarkets, walk into the markets, go online, do a little survey, a sample survey on WhatsApp. You have WhatsApp business, do a survey. How much are you willing to pay for this? All natural, organically grown, no pesticide, and then you put it out there. You get the information before you put your product. And it's very, very important to do that level of market research to understand where your product is placed. And you'll be very surprised sometimes, even without a highly flamboyant label on your bottle, even without preservatives, even without nutritional facts, even without a marketing budget, somebody might be willing, or your market, your target market, might be willing to pay more money because, one, I am a young female entrepreneur. I produce this organically. I am the sole breadwinner of my family. These stories tie with somebody, and then you'll be able to have that level of advantage in your pricing. So it's very important that you understand those three strategies. Most businesses use the first one, where they ensure that the cost is covered, and then they add a markup. And the markup ensures you cover things like utilities, wages, profitability, etc. But the others are just as important, especially if you don't have all the information in your grasp. Let's look at each one individually. Cost plus pricing. So we discussed this. I said this is the most popular one. You calculate total cost. We did that 2 slides ago. We know our total cost. You add the desired profit margin. And it's important to understand these things. And now we have AI, we have all these Excel sheets that can do this for you. But even if you do not have these things, and I like to use this example every time I talk about cost. Growing up in primary school, there was this old man with the only small shop in Greece. I'm seeing his face now, but I can't remember his name. And he used to have those thick notebooks, and he had a very sharp knife and those long, big lead pencils. And he used to, and every time you come in the shop, he's sharpening that to make sure his point is fine. And this man's notebook has the lines, and he has his headings. Every single thing that was bought was written. Every single person that owed him, he had a section for it. Nothing that came in the store wasn't documented. Nothing that left the store wasn't documented. He didn't know Excel. He didn't know point of sale. He didn't know AI. None of these things, but all of the things I just mentioned are based on that same practical example of what he used to do. All of them are built on models based on bookkeeping, basic bookkeeping. And sometimes you wonder, what's bookkeeping? That's exactly what it is. A big notebook that all the information. So sometimes we make the excuse, I cannot afford an accounting system. I cannot afford an accountant. This is too hard. This man, I'm pretty sure, was not very literate. But he documented every single aspect of his shop. And I'm pretty sure that was very, very successful for him, because that shop is being run by his kids to a day like today. And he's passed away maybe 20 years now. So this is what we need to do. Anyway, moving on. The formula for that selling price, you have your total cost divided by your total cost times your profit margin. So if you use 20%, that is the formula you use. So adding it to our tomato example, we were able to come up with a total cost of $525. We have identified, based on what the market is saying, a 20% profit margin works for us. So therefore, our selling price is equal to the 525 divided by 525 times 20%, and we get $640. So this method ensures you cover your costs, you make a profit, but the only drawback is it doesn't account for market conditions. But the most important thing here is you've covered your costs and you made a profit. And sometimes the profit that you make here is able to account for your market conditions. Does anybody have any questions on this so far? Okay. Moderator, we good? There are no questions in the box?
Teresa has something to say. Go ahead, Teresa.
Hi, good night.
Good night,
Okay,
Teresa.
I'm listening to the costing of the tomatoes and the stuff. Okay. I have avocado trees, I have mango trees, golden apple tree, breadfruit tree. Okay, somebody come and they tell me they want to buy my mango tree. How do I do that? Because I have never sold those things before. How do I do that?
Do you want to buy the whole tree?
Yeah, because I have heard people say they want to buy the whole tree. I've been in places and I heard a person say they want to buy the whole tree.
Or they want to buy the tree?
They want to buy like when you say the whole tree, like the mangoes are in the tree, like all the mangoes. But I want to know, how do you go along to price that? Or okay, I don't know how they call. I think those big green baskets that have the square baskets, right? Those kind of thing, like trays.
Right, I understand what you say now.
Yes. Okay,
see,
so somebody will come and they'll fool that thing with mango. How do you go? How do you go about selling that?
Okay.
Price.
Sometimes we see these things and we have to understand the processes, right? If you are selling mangoes and using that same green basket that you're talking about, I know about it. If you are the one going up the tree, picking the mangoes, washing the mangoes, and putting it in the tray, you are supposed to look at your costs of wages and utilities used. However, if somebody comes to you with their own picker, their own tree, and all they want is your tree, there's a different cost.
Okay.
So while that is not set in stone, some people that's watching and say, you come in and buy my fruit for $1, but you're selling it for $5, and they think that they're making a loss. But sometimes you have to look at the time and effort that is put into the production. So in this case, we're talking about harvesting of mangoes, right? Even if the tree is yours, sometimes you have to pay somebody $100 just to go in the tree and pick all the fruits for you. That's a cost. Sometimes you have to get transportation to take it to the market. That's a cost. Then you have to stay there for the day and hope people come and buy from you. That's another cost. However, but if somebody comes to you and tell you, Mom, I'm buying the mangoes from your tree, all the things I mentioned to you there, you don't have to do, which means you have lost that cost. Everything that they give you is profit. So there's a different price. While I cannot tell you exactly what the price is, these are the factors you must look at when you sell. So sometimes we have to, even in the practical example of CMOS, almost all our islands produce CMOS. You see the price of CMOS in St. Lucia, sometimes 15 EC, 20 EC. In St. Vincent, 10 EC, 20 EC. Then you see the same CMOS in New York for 50 US. You say, well, what's going on? There are a lot of costs to get it to the place. And sometimes we must understand our role in the chain. If I am just the owner of the tree, I can accept a lower cost because I have very little to lose. However, if I am the person in the market, there's a lot to lose. Somebody might not come and buy. It might spoil. I need refrigeration. I have to pay somebody to stand there for the whole day. All of these factors add to the price of the mango. So you have to understand which one is better for you.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. So let's look at the second example, value-based pricing.
Before you continue, Mr. Badal, one of the ladies is asking, well, she's saying she doesn't really understand how to pay herself. Is that something you're going to get into or you want to address right now?
Oh, sure, I can address it right now. I wasn't going to go into it. A lot of the times, what you'd use is you use the market rate. And most countries have different market rate. For example, in Montserrat, you have agricultural workers now asking for between $150 to 200 EC a day for labor in an agricultural farm. In St. Lucia, you have 120, 150, sometimes $80. I'm not sure what the prices are in St. Kitts and St. Vincent, but it's important to understand the market rate. And the market rate differs based on what you're doing. If you are doing weeding, there's a market rate. If you are using machinery, there's a market rate. So you pay yourself what you would have paid somebody to do it for you. That's the easiest way to look at it. So I need to weed my tomato farm today. My tomato farm is 11,000 square feet, right? If I had to pay John to do this for me, I would pay him $100 a day, and he would take 3 days. Therefore, the $300 would be the labor for weeding. You do it yourself, you pay yourself the same rate. If you want to be a little cheap on yourself, which doesn't make sense, but sometimes we do it for the business, you can say, instead of paying 100 because I'm doing it, I'm going to take 80 a day. Sometimes you do not even need to manually remove that money from the business and into your pocket, but it must be part of your pricing. So when you do your, okay, I've harvested 1,000 tomatoes from that farm, that $300 that was used by you for weeding must be part of your total cost. And that is the important thing. Can I move on now?
We have one question in the Q&A. How do you account for financial losses caused by bad weather when pricing crops?
That's a very important question. Bad weather is one of the variables you can never really put into your pricing. This is why insurance was created. Now, I understand that not all our products, Not all our businesses are eligible for insurance. It's one of the very sad realities that small businesses, and especially in our small island developing states, encounter. We cannot. I have seen tears of some of ours, especially our CMOs recently in St. Lucia. Every single person who had CMOS lost it. Everything was just floating in the bay. From a little sea swell, everything has been wiped. So sometimes you stay there, you toil in the hot sun, cold water from 5 a.m. in the morning for 6, 7, 8 weeks. And let's say you are about to harvest, boom. There is really no way to factor this into your pricing. However, when you are doing your margins, you can put a little bit aside if you are not covered by insurance to ensure that there is continuity in cases of storms. Sometimes this addition makes your products too expensive, but you have to monitor it. But it's not something that you can always put in your pricing, but it is something that you have to consider. That's a very important question. And in as much as possible, we have to continue to lobby as small businesses and agriculturists to get those insurance companies to cover some of what we do. Any more questions, moderator?
Not right now. I think we could move on.
Okay, great. So I did touch on the value-based pricing earlier, but we're going to look at it here a bit. This is where I said that you must understand the market you operate in. And now, I think now we have very little excuse as business owners, and I'm calling everybody inside there a business owner, whether you have a farm that only does raw materials right down to somebody who does agro-processing. As business owners, we are in the era where we can make a huge impact in terms of understanding our business with very little cost. Back in the day, to get a little bit of information, you have to do a focus group, you have to pay a consultant, you have to pay a radio station, you have to pay a TV station, you have to walk around, ask questions. Nowadays, WhatsApp business have poll, Facebook have poll, Instagram have poll, Instagram have ads, Facebook have ads. All these low-cost things to understand the market we operate in. So, I want to produce mushrooms. I've gone in the statistics department of St. Kitts, and I see Kittitians are importing $1 million worth of mushrooms every year, right? How much are they willing to pay for it? A simple poll. You have WhatsApp business, a simple poll. Do it with your family. Do it with your friends. Add some more. Do a Facebook poll. Pay for a Facebook ad. Get the information. And you understand the market you operate in. You can find out what are customers willing to pay. Are you willing to pay $10 for this local produced mushroom as opposed to $12 for this imported mushroom? We can ask these questions even before we go into production. And with that information is expensive. Information is one of the most expensive things there is in the world. And to understand this, I'll give you the example. I'm pretty sure, well, the countries that have Massey would be St. Lucia, St. Vincent. I'm not sure about St. Kitts. But most people shop at Massey. Most people have a Massey card. And people believe that this Massey card is, oh, they're checking for me. They're giving me points every time I shop. No. Massey gave you a card to track what you buy. They gave you a card to know exactly what you buy, how often you buy it, what you're willing to pay for it. The card gives them all the information that they need when they're ordering. They know what to put on the shelf. They know when to put it. They know when to stock the shelf heavy. They know when to do all of that from your Massey card. Yes, we get a little points. We can shop at Christmas. But the points that they give you is nothing compared to what they would have paid a consultant to get the same information from that card. Information is important, and we must do it ourselves. We don't need to put a loyalty card, but we can get information very, very cheaply and easily now compared to before. And then you factor in the unique qualities of your products. Are your products organic, homemade, locally sourced? And if you look again with information, you would see that we are in the era where even though people are still price sensitive, there are a lot of people who are also very sensitive about what they put in their stomach. They are very sensitive about what they eat. They're very sensitive as to where what they eat is coming from. This banana can be coming from an area with child labor. I'm not buying it. There are people who are very, very strong on this, and they would prepare to pay more money for your banana because people that are producing it are being paid fairly. That is where fair trade came in. That brand was that people were being paid fairly as compared to cheap labor from South America. So these factors are important. I did this crochet in my hand. I made the package for my tomato basket from my hand. Therefore, there is more value associated with it. And you do this, and then you look at the impact on people. You identify your product's unique benefits. I'm pretty sure Helen's Daughters encourages everybody to produce organically. And that's a fancy word now. Organic production. I do not use pesticide. I do not use herbicide. I use natural products. These are important. And it must be clearly stated in your marketing that this product gives you X and Y. And I don't use this, no cancer causing, all of these. And you'd see how people, how customers value those benefits. And then when you have that very, very spicy, well-flavored pepper sauce, you can compete with a Barron's and say, but Barron's adds X, Y, Z, but I don't have it. I have only, look, these things are very, very, very important when you compare. And then you set your price based on this. So I've determined that the people who shop at this store are focused on value, they focus on unique, they focus on organic. Therefore, I can price my product $2 more expensive than the one that costs or the one that uses chemicals. And they will pay for it. And you have to understand that when you're pricing. So, and the last one, again, I think for all three examples, I've stressed the importance of understanding the market and doing research. I've also said that research is expensive. However, there are many, many different cheap methods you can use to do research. I'll use an example here. How many years ago was that? Probably about 10 years ago, I went to a trade show in St. Lucia at the Darren Sammy Cricket Stadium. I believe it was the Specialty OECS trade show. And it was only OECS companies inside there, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, St. Kitts, Antigua. But everywhere you walk inside of the stadium, there were a few ladies with a what they call it, a Root Boy poster. Root Boy didn't launch in St. Lucia yet. They were just walking around, giving people samples, asking them what they think, collecting their information. Fast forward 10 years now. Root Boy is in every bar in St. Lucia. Root Boy is in every supermarket in St. Lucia. This is one of the most profitable markets, all from simple market research. Walking around, asking people their opinion, giving samples, collecting the information, and then you know how to launch. And look at now, it's a multi-million-dollar enterprise operating in St. Lucia from simple market research. So, using that same example, research your competitors' prices. Go around, see, spy on them, see what they're doing, copy what they're doing, look at their prices, look at what they do to get the price low. All of this is important in terms of how you price your product. And again, you determine, okay, I want to enter aggressively. I know I am expecting 10,000 pounds of tomatoes at the end of the week. Tomatoes have a very low shelf life. I didn't spend a lot of money to produce these tomatoes. I am going to enter at a low price, but still make a profit, and I'm wiping out my competition. So all the imported tomatoes will stay on the shelf because I have a very low price and I've entered. And then people try your tomatoes, they love your tomatoes, you become popular and they keep looking out for you. Gradually, you can raise your price because people are already accustomed to you. And there's a lot of companies that do this. Cell phone companies, OnePlus, I'll never forget. OnePlus came out again, probably about 10 years ago, competing with Android and iPhone. And they have all the specs, better camera, better processor, better speed, all of this for half the price. They did that until they got millions of people hooked. And then boom, now it costs the same price as an iPhone. But because you are so loyal, oh, but this thing is so good, you will still buy it. That is called penetration pricing. So we can use these strategies when we price our products. What time is it now? Moderator, can we take a 10-minute break now? Or if there are any questions before we break?
We absolutely can, unless there's any of you ladies have any questions. If so, raise your hand and I'll give you permission to speak. Other than that, we can.
So before we take the
Okay, I
break, I
have
want you to
somebody who
look at...
raised their hand. Sorry.
Oh, sure, go ahead.
Go ahead, Marcia. You could unmute yourself and speak. Okay, well, while we wait for her, I guess you could finish your thought. Oh, okay, I see she's unmuted.
Hello, good evening. My
Good
name is
evening, Marcia.
Yeah,
Can you speak up a bit? I'm not hearing you.
I'm from St. Kitts. You hear me now? I'm from
I'm
St.
hearing
Kitts.
you.
I'm having a little serious problem, I will call it, because I make ice pops, and my problem is the foreign ice pop versus the locally made ice pops. The problem is that the cost. My cost is $8 for 12 in the pack, and the foreign one you get in at 20,
Okay, I'm
25.
still not hearing you clearly. Can you say that again, the last part? Your cost is
Okay,
$8 and the foreign one is how much?
it's $13, I think, with 25 or 30 in the pack.
Mm-hmm.
Hear me? So I want to know how to solve the problem, because people will prefer to buy the foreign ice cream because of the cost. They're getting 200% profit, and with mine they are only getting a 50% profit. But mine is better
Mm-hmm.
because I don't use much preservative to preserve my ice cream, seeing that it makes here. But when it coming from foreign,
Mm-hmm.
you have to put more preservatives. So I having a little problem with the competition, because it's like a pushback for me in terms of getting it sell more locally. So I would like
Okay.
to know.
I think you give me the answer in your description.
Yeah.
There are always people who are price sensitive. That we can never go around that, especially in our small islands. St. Kitts actually has very high prices. From my experiences there, the cost of living in terms of what's in the stores are very expensive. So you have customers that are very sensitive to price. However, you also said that your products are naturally made. You now must focus. If you have calculated your total cost, and doesn't matter what you do, your costs will continue to be more expensive than the competitor, then you focus on non-cost competition. That is where you focus on value. You have to let people see that there is a value because your cost is higher. And you mentioned that your products is natural, it's local. There must be a way to tie that in with buy local, with buy natural, so that people see that they're not only paying for the pop, they're paying to support one of our own. So you must focus a bit on your marketing when it comes to that one in particular.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Any more moderator in there?
I just unmuted Melissa, so you could go ahead with your question.
Right, everyone. Anyone hearing me?
Yes, we're hearing you.
All right. So just to draw back to when the person was saying in case of a disaster and so forth. While I was doing my home and I was building, we had to put aside a contingency fund in case of anything that occurred that is outside of the actual cost of the building. Right. So one of the things is put aside a little bit of money or probably the savings. So in the event that hurricane may affect or your weather may affect your agriculture products or your structure, your system, then you'll have that little bit of money to at least, it may not cover the actual cost of repairing the repairs, but it will contribute significantly to do any repairs after doing your assessment after the weather. All right, that's what I have to say. Thanks.
Yes, that is a wonderful suggestion. One of the things, and if you look at the examples, let me go back here. Cost plus pricing is one of the areas you can put that. You can put that contingency plan you mentioned in your markup. So for example, if you say 2%, I'm adding 2% to everything I sell for my hurricane fund. You can do it inside there and it's automatic every time you sell. But the thing is, and I don't know anybody inside there. I'm speaking specifically to the characteristics of small businesses in these islands. We don't do that. We don't do that. And even when we do it, we push our hand in it and we buy sofa, we buy 65-inch television, we buy, we upgrade the vehicle even if the old one can still, we don't do it. And it takes a lot of discipline to do what you just said there. If we are going or we know our business is very vulnerable to the weather, it's very vulnerable to hurricanes, storms, sea swells, etc. That is something we must factor in, especially if we are getting a decent price for our goods. But we don't do it, and we never really invest. This should be money that is taken away from personal account, even sometimes taken away from the main operating account of the business into an area that we cannot take it out easily. And then this is what would cause exactly what you said there. Give us that contingency where we don't have to depend on government. We don't have to depend on insurance. We don't have to be crying every single time a storm passes because we have a plan to resume once it's over. So that's a wonderful suggestion, but it takes a lot of discipline. Just to add to that, a little example. You see, I given you all stick, but I'll give myself too. Even with a salary coming in from a desk job, we don't do that. So every year for a number of years, I bought my vehicle in January, which was one of the worst things you could ever do. Every year, after you spend money in December, buy everybody gift, mother, father, children, everything. Once January hit, I used to get a bill for insurance. My goodness gracious. That insurance bill used to hit me so hard. So one of the bankers said, you know what? We will just deduct a certain amount from your salary every month and put it in an account. I cannot see the account on my online banking. I cannot see it when I go to the bank, but it's there every month. And then the following year, I even forgot the account existed. And I just said, my goodness, this insurance again. And I'm walking to find out what to do, and I'm seeing there's a large amount already there waiting for me to pay the insurance. That's what we need to do when it comes to something like this. So as we take the break, everyone, I want to get some people to do that exercise. If you have your information in front of you now, list all your direct and indirect costs, add them to get your total cost. You can use a simple example and choose one of the pricing strategies that we just learned. And after we come back, I will ask somebody to present what they came up with. So I produce cucumbers. My total cost is $600. I have chosen the cost plus method, and I've chosen to add 50% markup. Therefore, my price is that. I've chosen value because I use organic. Just I want 3 examples. So when we come out from the break, we will go through this. Okay? So moderator, we take a 10-minute break. Is that okay?
Yes, that is fine.
Okay, great.
So ladies, we'll resume at 7:18 p.m.
So everybody back with us? Okay, I'm seeing a question here from, is it Janice Saltibus? I make just to sell at farmers market. Sometimes I get my fruits, including mangoes, golden apples, cherries, passion fruit from my backyard. When I can't get this from the backyard and I have to go to the local market or get it from other farmers, should I price my juice more when I have to source the fruits out? That's a very important question. One of the easiest ways to do this, Janice, is that your price, even when you get it from the yard, and again, you see, that might be a fundamental mistake. So because I have a golden apple tree in the back of my yard, I can make wonderful juice and I don't really pay or cost the purchase price of the raw material. The raw material is the golden apples. So what you're saying there effectively is that when you get it from your yard, when you make the juice, sometimes you look at the price of sugar, you look at the price of any other ingredients you put in there, but never the price that you took it from your yard. That is a mistake. Whenever we are doing a processed product, whether it be juice, jams, jellies, every single aspect must have a cost, whether it came from our yard or whether we bought it from the store. If we do not know how to price the golden apples that are in our yard or the cherries that are in our yard, do it the same way you would have done it if you had to go and buy it yourself. That way, you are covering your cost. So when you don't do it, when now you have made a name for yourself, Genesis Juices, wonderful. All over the island, people know Genesis Juices. A bottle of golden apple juice is $5, and it's a wonderful juice. Now you have no golden apples, and you have to buy from Mr. Badal. And Mr. Badal sold you, but because you are so well known, you cannot go and change the price you have now. You cannot go to Marcy and say, Marcy, I bought from Mr. Badal, so I have to change. No, you have signed a contract. Therefore, you'll be making a loss because you never add the purchase price. And I see somebody just put buying from ourselves. Even if you don't physically pay yourself, cost your products properly. That's what I have to say to that. So let's go to let me get some volunteers. Did anybody do the exercise?
Ladies, again, if you want to
Moderator,
be
if they're not
unmuted,
volunteering,
sorry about that. If you want to
no
be
problem.
given permission to speak, please just raise your hand and I will and give you permission to speak and you could share your answers.
And moderator, they're not volunteering, you could just choose one.
Okay. Which one of my St. Lucian ladies, or should I just at random close my eyes and whatever name I see? Let's see who is willing. Kriya, you up for it? Okay, somebody just raised their hand. Chalisa, go ahead, unmute.
Good night, everyone.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Good. I chose okay, I'm gonna put it like this. I do ginger, right? My direct cost for my ginger. I do like 4 days, about 2 persons each. They're working for $60 a day. My that's my direct cost. My indirect cost is cost for weeding, which takes me about 4 days because I do the weeding myself. And cost for my ginger. Well, actually, it varies. I put it at 7 or 8, but sometimes the price go down to say 5. But I'm looking at 20 or 30% profit. So my costing is like for the 4 days at the labor and the laborers, which is 2 at 60 per day. That is 24 and 24. So that's $480 direct cost. And I do $50 for my weeding, which is 4 days approximately. So that's 200. So my direct cost is $680. And it says 700 because I am adding the fertilizer. I don't know if I'm going right. Adding the fertilizer. So for everything for that, and that's like a acre of ginger, planted ginger, right? It's not reapers yet, but I am looking at a pricing for like say $700 to $800 a sack. It may varies to 5. So I do not have a profit as yet.
Okay, that's very good. Very good. And if you continue to document it like that, you will find the right conditions where you make a profit. That's excellent. Somebody else?
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Anybody else, ladies, or do I have to? Okay, look, we have somebody. Go ahead, Angie.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. I looking at a product that I just developed. Agro-processing, plantain wraps. A direct cost comes up to $150 for 10 pounds of plantain. And the labor, 3 hours, I included electricity that. So there's a total cost of $273. And I'm looking at a profit margin of 20%, which give me a total of $319. I get, from that, I can get 25 wraps, 25 packets of wraps at free per packet. And I discover from doing this exercise that I'm underpricing. Because some of the plantain, I didn't, because it's coming from me, I didn't add a price to it.
Wonderful.
So having done this exercise, I realize I have to increase my price with the 20%, with just a 20% profit margin. And
Wonderful.
my product is gluten-free. It's no additives. It's rated, it's given positive ratings from customers who have tried it. So I think the price, increasing the price, customers will still purchase the product.
Okay, now since I have you there, you chose the cost plus pricing method. Do you think that maybe you should have used the value-based pricing method here? Because
I think so.
you have mentioned so many wonderful taglines, organic, gluten-free. All of these align with some of what the hotels are looking for when they serve wraps. And wraps are being sold everywhere, especially in the hotels. But a plantain wrap fits the mold for what the current trend of millennial buyers are looking for. So you might be better off using a value-based pricing. So you've identified your costs. You just said you've done some research and people are willing to pay more because they want gluten-free, they want this. So maybe you should use a value-based pricing.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for that. I will do
Because it
that.
sounds like you did the research already.
Yes, I have. Yes, I've done some research
Very
on
good.
it.
Very
Thank
good. So
you.
what you can do again, walk through the store, see if there's anybody that does it. Nobody does it. You almost like a
Nobody.
little monopoly. While it's a wrap, but nobody's doing it, therefore you can add more. But never do the research so that you don't price yourself out the market, but at the same time you're getting the value for all the taglines you mentioned there. Gluten-free,
Okay.
that's a big thing now. A lot of people are gluten resistant. So you want to make sure that you target these people. So that's an excellent example. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
One more?
Anybody else, ladies? Just raise your hand. Okay. Stephanie, go ahead.
Hi, good night.
Good night.
I plant tomatoes and I'm doing the costing right now. So I put my direct cost at $700 for the land. I'm looking at 1,000 seedlings. The packet of seeds will cost me about $250 for the seedlings. So that's part of my indirect cost. My water, the soil, the pit moss, my labor, the fertilizer, all of that. So my indirect cost worked out to be about $960 plus my direct cost, which is about $700. The total worked out to be about $1,660. So from the 1,000 seedlings, I could harvest about 7 crates. One crate weighs about 80 pounds. So that would give me a total weight of about 560 pounds. So when I divide my weight from my harvest with my total cost, it works out to be about 2.96, which is about $3 a pound. So anything I get above $4 would be a profit. So it depends on how much profit you want to make. So I'm thinking sometimes, like the last time I planted tomatoes, I went to the hotel and their price was $6. But at that time, the market was like, there were not that many tomatoes on the market. It was scarce. So they asked me what price I'm selling. So I said, I'll sell for you at about $7. So they said, no, that's too high. So we agreed on $6.50. They decided to pay me $6.50. And that was the first time I actually scored a profit in tomatoes. So it worked out to be about $3,640. And whereby my total cost was $1,660. So sometimes you can't really figure in like what your percentage markup would be. But when you go to the market and you know behind your head what your expenditure is, you know how much you could mark up your price for you to maximize your profit.
Wonderful.
Yes, so that was really,
Wonderful.
really
And
a
I'm
good
going to
time for me with
piggyback.
tomatoes.
Yeah. I'm going to
Because that
piggyback on your
time,
example because
okay,
go ahead.
because that time I think Marcy was buying, but it was way less. It was probably about $5. And I normally sell to Marcy. So it was really like mind-blowing for me to sell to them and to experience that. So I realize sometimes we as farmers, we do control our price. It's just finding the right market.
It's true.
Yeah.
Okay, so based on what you're saying, if you the fact that you've understood your cost, and again, that's the whole point of what we're doing, understanding our cost and our pricing. Sometimes, even by knowing what the established market is doing, we can work backwards, and which is what you did there. So, for example, you happen to know the purchasing manager in Free Hotels. You all are good friends. They said, you know what, Badal, I want to buy tomatoes from you. We'll give you tomatoes, but we only pay in $5. You can start with that.
Mm-hmm.
Say that again.
I'm listening. I said okay.
Yeah, you can start with, I'm not giving that example for you to sell at $5. I'm just saying we can start and work backwards. You know what? For me to sell at $5, my cost must be X. Therefore, I must do, and then we can work backwards and still make a profit. So there's a understanding your price. Sometimes you are able to understand everything and work backwards. And a lot of people do that. Some people get contracts with KFC, for example, to produce lettuce. KFC pays a certain price, which means that your production costs must be low. But once you are able to hit that, you have a guaranteed market for a number of years. So that's another example we can use when we're doing our pricing. Okay, we don't have a lot of time left, so let me try to go through these slides a little quicker. Tracking our costs. And it's a good thing you guys ask so many very wonderful questions, because a lot of what I was about to say has been already said through those questions. Tracking the cost, the example the lady gave a while ago with the cherries, etc. in the backyard, is a perfect example of this. We don't track all our costs. Some of the costs are hidden.
Mr.
So
Badal,
let's look at it.
sorry to interrupt your
Yes?
thought, but one other person, she would have just raised her hand. I don't know if you want to take her question now
Sure,
or
go
later.
ahead.
Okay.
Sure, go ahead. Go ahead.
Nalin?
Hi, with me, I have cattle, and I know you can do that with the plants. You can do it with your items that you produce, but the universe decides the price of cattle, no matter how long you feed them or you have them, or you could have had them for a couple months, or from birth, that is, or a couple years, and no matter what, the universe still decides the price. If it is $14 a pound or $5 a pound or whatever, you cannot change these prices. So these are some of the things that the cattle farmers face in that industry.
I will tell you something about cattle farming. I am not an expert by any means, and not only cattle farming, but animal rearing in general, especially in our islands. We are taking hits upon hits because we don't understand butchering. And I'll tell you, some of these cattle, as an example, have premium cuts that we don't understand yet. Some of these steaks are sold for so much money because we have not understood exactly. So, typical example, we do the butchering, we sell per pound, but we don't understand certain parts of the cattle are premium. So while you say that, yes, the market determines the price, understanding the industry a little bit more intricately will show that we are losing a lot of money when we slaughter these animals. Sometimes we cut areas where there is fantastic steaks that can be sold at a premium to those hotels, and we sell it to people for $14 a pound. If we understood the butchering system a little bit better, we would understand how to maximize the carcass of these animals. So that while you're correct, at the same time, there is a lot more intricacies involved in animal rearing that we must understand, which is why we need to establish some of those abattoirs and the slaughterhouses even more, so that we can get those premium cuts that make up for the low prices we sell per pound sometimes.
Yes, you are so correct. But I think, that knowledge has to be filtered down to our actual public, who majority of the time are the ones that come and stand up and buy the $14 pounder for Christmas, because I do not think an elderly lady will think of, oh, let me go buy a steak. No, they will just buy their 14-pound meat and go and cook
Yeah,
it
but when
same
you
way.
kill a cow, you have to take it out. Take it
Yes,
out
but then
so that
who are
she's
we
not the
going
one
to?
buying it.
Every
Yeah.
single farmer cannot target hotels or people who are knowledgeable about slices of meat or steaks and stuff like that. You actually have to feed our locals, and they don't really care about steak. everything goes in the pot
Mhm.
same way. So I think maybe, like you said, the knowledge, if the knowledge filters down, but we also don't have sufficient markets for all of these cattle farmers that we have to be able to sell those premium pieces, um, even on a weekend or wherever, when we decide to kill.
Are you St. Lucian, miss? Are you St. Lucian by any chance?
Yes, I am.
Oh, but you'll be very surprised. There are some I know hotels in St. Lucia who pay a premium for local steak. So, like I said, it's like you said, it's about understanding it, but more and more, when especially, and I'm not sorry, I'm not making this unique to St. Lucia. All the islands represented in this class are very much strong tourist-based economies. These guests pay a premium to consume what is in the country. They do not come to our country to buy cattle that comes from the US or comes from Argentina. But at the same time, the hotels have requirements for entry. The cattle must be killed in a humane manner. The blood must run. The temperatures must be kept. There must be certain levels of certification and traceability. I'm not saying that all our farmers can do this, but like you said, because we are price takers, as you continue to grow your business, these are the things you need to look at. How can I maximize the carcass of this animal beyond selling at Christmas to separate, where I can sell certain parts to the locals, but I would make a premium selling certain parts to the hotel. These are some of the things you need to consider as you expand your business.
Yes, thank you, sir. You make so much sense. But I think we also need like courses or classes as to how to be able to do the carcass separations and so
Make sure you type this and you send this to Kiflin.
to who?
Miss Carew.
Okay, not a problem.
Okay, good. Okay, moving on.
Yes, moving on.
Again, say that again.
I said yes, moving on.
Okay, yes. I mentioned the old man earlier that keeps the notebook, and everybody here is on Zoom, so we have an idea. We have a machine, we have a phone, we have a laptop because we are able to use this interface. There is so much technology now that we can use. Some of what you just did a while ago, the direct cost, the indirect cost, you wrote it on a piece of paper. You can simply take your smartphone and take a picture of what you wrote and go and paste it, copy it, paste it in an AI, and ask the AI to calculate your break-even based on this. We have so much technology now. We can use this thing to our advantage when we do our costing. Okay, you know what to do? You know what? I'm going to write down every single thing I buy for this piece of land. Seedlings, pit moss, write down everything. Write down the labor for the next 3 months at $60 and paste it in the AI and said, calculate my cost. Give me the ways to, and it gives you the information very, very easily. So we have this now. And if you're not that savvy, again, notebook, pencil, lines, write down everything that we spend, everything that we sell. And we are simply able to get our costs. And important in all what's written on the screen here, the hidden is the most important. So we spoke to a lady a while ago who takes stuff from her yard to make juices. And she never used to price the raw material, hidden costs. Sometimes we drive to the farmer's market. Yes, we drive to the farmer's market. We put $20 fuel in our tank to get there. That is a cost that you must cover as you paid to want to sell the product. You hire Mr. John Van to bring your things to the market. You paid Mr. John. That money must be part of your costs. There's a lot of little things. Sometimes we have a little plastic bag we put our tamarind balls. Might be a little plastic bag, 20 cents, 10 cents for one. So that's nothing. No, you add it to your cost. You must cover it because when the plastic bags finish, you still have to go and buy another bundle using the same money from the sales. Every single thing that is spent, we have to accrue it. And again, you sit down there for 3 hours, rolling the tamarinds with sugar and whatever, pay yourself per hour. My going rate is $60, pay myself $60 for the day. Add it to your cost. These things are important because you will not be sustainable if you don't do this. Yeah. Importantly, break even. And it sounds complicated for people with no accounting background, but it's not. The break even is the point at which I cover my costs. I must sell 10 tomatoes to cover the cost of producing the tomatoes. Everything after that is profit. That is very, very important. This is where the sales volume equals your cost. You're not making a profit, but equally and importantly, you're not making a loss. That is one of the most crucial aspects of business, understanding your break-even. When you understand your break-even, you know that if I go to the farmer's market today, after I've paid my gas, I've paid for my plastic bags, I've paid for my plastic bottles, I've paid for my labor, I've paid everything, I've established all my costs, I must sell 50 bottles of juice today, or else I am making a loss. And when you have that information, you are driven to make it done. And you know, when you watch the cooler, 50 has gone, and you're watching it go instead, yes, I've made money today. This is important in understanding how you make money, how important the prices is by knowing where your break-even point is. You sat there and you're watching your product sell, and you have no idea if you're making a profit, if you're making a loss, because you don't understand the concept of break-even. So that is very, very important. And the formula for this is your total fixed cost divided by, in brackets, and you do what's in brackets first, your selling price per unit minus your variable cost per unit. So you have your selling price, whether it be I'm selling at $5 per bottle of juice, and it costs me $3.50 per bottle of juice. $5 minus $3.50, and you divide it in your total cost. That is how you get your break even. Simple formula. I see somebody ask about the slides, as the slides will be shared, but this is something you should always have in your mind to calculate your break even costs. So using our same tomato example, we have fixed costs. $600 we pay for lease, for rent, for mortgage. Our variable cost is we pay $2 per kg of tomatoes. We sell at $4. Therefore, our break even, we said 4 minus 2, get 3. 600 divided by 3, 300 kg. That means we must sell 300 kg of tomatoes to cover our costs. Simple equation, it gets more expansive and more intricate and more difficult when you have more costs. But if you're tracking all your costs and you separate them, fixed costs, land, machinery, you add it, you get a total. Variable costs, you have pesticide, weedicide, whatever, you add it, you get a total. When you add fixed costs, variable costs, it's very, very easy when we collect all the information. So this is how we do this, and you are able to get the information. Any questions? Okay.
Right
Since
now.
we have no questions, is there a question?
No, not right now.
We have gone through today is
Wait,
what
somebody just raised their hand. Let me
Okay.
give her permission to speak. Go ahead,
Hi.
Teresa.
Well, it's not really a question. I am just capturing the moment. And because I am saying, okay, there are people that don't that are gluten intolerant just like me and lactose intolerant just like me. And I'm listening and I'm saying, okay, I would like to make the bread because I'm making the bread for myself. I remember making the bread and I told a group of my church people about the bread and everybody excited about the bread, excited about it, but the flour is very expensive. I made the bread. I made how many bread, how many times, and I bring it and give them to sample. But in the bread, when I make the bread is not just flour. I put my nuts and my grains in it for people. Well, if I know you're not allergic to the nuts, I put the nuts and the grains, the this and that. And then I'm like, oh yes, you're enjoying it, but nobody never asked for um to make for them because I bring it as a sample for them to order, and nobody order. Like everybody just want to eat, and I'm saying, oh okay. So I'm sitting there, I'm saying, but if I just buy, I keep buying the flour and let them eat the bread just so. And there is a cost to the almond. There's a cost to the pumpkin seed, all the different seeds that I put in it. And so now I have to look into that and say, okay, I'm going to make bread, but if you order the bread, I have to know how to do the costing because I'm listening to the tomatoes and the different thing, but I'm putting it into the flour, the nuts and the grains just to be able to make the profit. If I'm going to do it, how to make the profit out of the flour? First of all, the flour you might get a parcel with for 20 something dollars for the spell flour. Then you get the nuts, the different nuts, and I'm like, oh, I'm listening and I'm capturing and I'm really enjoying tonight. So thank you so very much for teaching me how to do the costing and how to make a profit out of the things that I'm
Wonderful.
going to make.
You're welcome. And I would love to try your bread.
No problem.
Okay, great. Our time is rapidly going, so let me just run this for you. A lot of us have businesses and we're terrified of expansion because we are not knowledgeable, like the lady just said, in terms of accounting and bookkeeping, and we hear these things. And I know a lot of small businesses who even hire people to do the accounting. What you've just learned in a very simple way is basic bookkeeping. And I always say now we have the technology, but even if you don't, notebook, pen, pencil, and recording information, sales record, expense receipts, labor logs, labor costs, all these things. You have a section in your notebook that shows that you worked 3 days a week. You have a section in your notebook that know when the man come and cut the grass for you, what day, between what time to what time, and how much you paid him. All of that information make sure or ensures that you are not spending money uselessly. And as the business grows, as the lady making the bread, as you grow your business and you're able to now look, you're at Massy Gourmet, you're in this hotel, you're in this bakery, you grow, you know what? I don't have enough time to write in a book. I'm going to invest in accounting software. It's really the same thing, but it's going to do it for you automatically. All these things are important as you grow. You must understand these very basics, but all the basics, all the pitch tree, all the AI, all the Excel goes back to what you collect. Garbage in, garbage out. You can have the best accounting system in the world if you're not collecting the information, and I say information, all the information, every single input. If it's not collected properly, you will never get your pricing properly. And that's very, very important that we understand this. The next section, I'll probably leave for the second class. So I'm going to stop here for today, and I'm going to open the floor to questions.
So in our Q&A box, oh wait, let me Is it Melissa? Give me one moment. Let me just run through the questions and then you can unmute. So somebody says, wow, I need to check my pricing. This session is such an eye-opener because initially, being new to the market, customers didn't want to pay the price I had. I'm actually running at a huge loss. Someone else says, is asking for a recording of the session. The recordings are placed on YouTube and the links will be shared in the group chat. So just bear with us. That will be shared with you for sure. Someone is asking for us to go back to the last slide so she could take a photo. But that, I don't know if you want to do that now, or if you want to share your screen again.
Sure.
How do you, pardon?
That's okay. I can share it again.
Okay. How do you factor in upgrades or improvements to farm into costs?
Was it this slide? Sorry.
Wendy, was it this slide? You could just type in the chat so I know, please. Wendy? The one before. The
Okay.
slide before. Yeah. So how do you factor in upgrades or improvements to your farm, I guess, into your costs?
Every single thing that is upgraded adds to the cost. So for example, if you moved from manually tilling the soil to now getting a tiller, the tiller now would require gasoline. The tiller itself, if you rented it, it has a rented fee. If you purchase it, it has a fixed cost now that you have to add and cover. All of this adds to your total cost. Some of it might show that it reduces your cost. So, for example, if you were paying 4 guys to come and till the soil for you at $100 a day for 5 days, that's one thing. Now that you've bought a tiller, it might actually, in the long run, reduce your costs, and then you'd see overall that you're making more money. So even if you're upgrading whatever expansions that come in, if you're doing juices and you put a solar panel on your roof and your electricity cost goes down, you document it. All of these things are important that you document it. Whether it be upgrading, you still document it.
Kathy, no, we don't have any butchering in this for this Ag-cademy program. That would probably come outside of this if the opportunity arises. Is there a suggested ad for record keeping so it's easier to record? Do you mean ad or app?
I think she means an app.
Yeah, I think she means app. Is there a suggested app for record keeping so it's easier to record profit and loss?
I'm not doing advertising for none of these companies. My thing is always the cheapest is the free one, and that is Excel. I would just advise anybody, you go online and you search online for a costing spreadsheet, Excel, and you'll get a free version of it. Orders that you have to pay for, whatever, yeah, you might, as you grow and expand, but you could look for a break-even analysis, costing. All of these spreadsheets are free on Excel. And maybe we could probably speak to the Ag-cademy to get something that tailors you, and we could probably share it with you in an email.
Melissa, go ahead.
All right. Hi. Good night, everyone again. Okay, so like 3 to 4 years back, I used to do floral arrangements. And then I recently moved back here and I restarted, and I'm being honest, the cost of flowers has tripled in price. So someone ordered 3 wreaths. They did it for a funeral, and I gave them a price, not factoring all the things that's detailed. And when I eventually started to do my pricing and so forth, I mean, after, I was at a loss. So it is good to, before you put a price, you actually, because sometimes I tell my gardener or somebody to do a work for me, they say, oh, after the work is done, I will tell you the price. So it is so something important for pricing and knowing your market and so forth. Because look, I went and bought so much flowers and so forth, and when I eventually cut down, I only must be $10 the most, when I should have probably made more on certain things. Yeah, thank you.
Yep. You're welcome. And don't you see what you just said there towards the end about some people tell you, oh, when I finish, I'll give you a price. Don't ever accept that. I have been burnt by this before, and that is one thing I will tell you: never accept. You get your price in before, and then you decide whether you give the work.
Maxine,
Any more
go
questions,
ahead.
moderator?
Yeah, I just unmuted Maxine.
Sorry, that was a mistake. I'm trying to do the poll, but I can't find it. Sorry, that was a mistake.
Okay, but since you're here already, hearing your lovely voice, anything to add?
No, this is just a lovely explanation here tonight. Lovely presentations. I'm anxious to do the poll, but I can't find it.
It was on the screen and it disappeared.
Only one question alone I saw, and then I couldn't get it submitted.
Oh.
So
I have not seen it, the poll.
Well, I launched it. You see, if I take it down, if I end it, then I'll have to relaunch it again, and everybody who's done it would have to redo it. Let me see what's happening, and in the meantime, any questions? Okay, so one question. Okay, wonderful. One question in the chat. What are the biggest mistakes farmers make when keeping records?
They don't. I think the biggest mistake is that they don't keep records. A lot of farm, I think in my experience over the past 15 years, is that a lot of farmers do not keep records. And secondly, the other probably biggest one is that they don't pay themselves. They merge the business income with the personal income, and they do not know the life of the business. They do not invest in the business. They use the business as a cash cow. In as much as it's your business, it's an entity by itself. I think that's the biggest mistake I have seen.
Ladies, for those of you who having issues, sorry, accessing the poll. If you're on your phone, go to the ... where it says more, and then you'll see polls and quizzes. So if swipe all the way to the side, click on more, and you'll see polls and quizzes, and you should be able to continue from there, for those of you who lost it on your screen. Melissa, go ahead.
All right. I was used to be amazed how my grandfather was a farmer, and he did cassava and sweet potato, and he had a herd. And I cannot remember my grandfather using any writing on anything, but my grandfather used to probably calculate it in his brain, because he used to make a profit and used to buy this, and then he was build his home and he'd buy lands and all of these things. So I mean, I'm not at the era where probably he did mental maths and know how to calculate and how to, I don't know how he did it, but I've never really looking back at it, ever seen my grandpa write it down anything at all, to be honest. So maybe we need to go back to some of the olden days.
Yes, some of that works, but I'll give you, there's a major disadvantage to that. It's continuity. And if that business, and we've seen a number of businesses big businesses in St. Lucia where you have these owners who micromanage and all the information is in their head. They have somebody that owe them $50,000 and it's in their head. And something tragic happens, there's a stroke or whatever, that person is scotch-free. There's no continuity. So in as much as it's wonderful to have that information, or continuity, if your grandfather had documented this, maybe all now you could have been building on his legacy with the information that he was able to capture.
Chanel, I give you permission to speak.
Okay, good night. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, wonderful. I'm enjoying the program right now. Just a question I had to ask concerning pricing of a product, like a vegan product. Solutions, we seem to eat the same foods. We have like similar palettes, especially when it comes to like things like mac and cheese, green fig salad. And a lot of people don't seem to be too open to vegan products. When it comes to the pricing, usually the vegan products, because since you go in vegan, you want no preservatives, you want organic and stuff like that. It happens to be a bit more expensive than the products that are filled with preservatives, etc. So how do you go about what advice would you have to give someone to go about trying to introduce a vegan product, something new, but the pricing, like how would you go about putting it at the right price, knowing that perhaps it might not be something that will be easily accepted, because of the way we eat?
Well, I think you've again you've answered your question to some extent. The research shows that currently, especially now, the St. Lucian and pretty much all the islands in the OECS, the consumers are very price sensitive, and because of this, we have the largest examples of those diseases in the region: diabetes, hypertension, because people really cannot afford to eat healthy. However, with that information, you've also now unlocked a new level of clientele, because a lot of people want to break the chain of diabetes and heart disease and hypertension by consuming those foods. So therefore, you must find a way to align your product with people that are moving in that direction. There's a growing demand, or there's a growing trend of veganism worldwide, and it's creeping into the OECS, it's creeping into the Caribbean. However, like you said, it's a little bit more expensive. Again, aligning yourself with the right marketing strategy is what you need. It's not necessarily just costing. There you need value-based pricing to ensure that people that are buying from you are seeing the perceived benefits. You must be able to clearly show that your products are organically grown. You must be able to clearly show that you have food traceability. You must be able to clearly show that you have aggressive and attractive packaging. All of this aligns with now whatever price you choose to sell your product. So it's a combination of factors, but you have already started with the research. You must now show quality from farm right down to the final product.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I think that's it for the questions. Oh, Stephanie, I see your hand is up again.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
I wanted to ask a question with regards to loss. I know he said when we experience bad weather, we cannot figure that into our pricing. But we've seen a lot of the times after hurricane or after tropical storm when we have a lot of damage to crops and vegetables and food items, that the prices still skyrocket. Like sometimes when we have bananas and a lot of the bananas get damaged, you no longer can buy $5 bananas. The bananas now go up, it's $10. You cannot buy if you were getting let me see, maybe 10 bananas for $5. Now you will be getting 10 bananas for $10 because there is less on the market. So the people that have, they will maximize their sale by increasing the price because demand has increased.
Mhm.
And also
Yes,
another thing,
but sometimes we do that. Sorry, sometimes we do that, and we maximize our price, but we never remember. I'm getting a premium for this banana now. Let me allocate some to the contingency that was spoken about. So this is what you have to do. If
you're
there
right.
is an ability to sell at a premium, you factor in this.
And the other thing, the other aspect of loss, because it's not just during the hurricane season. Sometimes you plant a crop and you have pest damage, you have predators, you have disease. So I would plant 1,000 lettuce and I figure I'm selling one lettuce head at $5 and I figure my price already. I do my markup, my percentage and everything. But then I lost 100 plants before maturation and I could harvest. Now I'm left with 900 plants. How can is there a way I could use that loss to generate a cost? Is there a formula? Is
Yeah,
there
well,
a way?
when you're doing your sales, you would see that your cost did not produce 1,000, produced 900. Therefore, you are dividing by a lower factor, which means that your selling price would have gone up.
Okay. All right. Understood.
Yeah.
Melissa, I see your hand is up. Go ahead.
Yes, good night. One of my concerns, when I used to do agriculture in school, I remember my teacher used to tell me at that time that there are two times to go to the market, which is be early in the morning and late in the afternoon. He said early in the morning you get the best produce, and late in the afternoon you get a bang for your buck. But nowadays days, I'm being honest, on the market, things that are perishable, such as bananas, ripe bananas, and so forth. And people in stock, and rather than selling it at a lower price, they rather sit in the bin, and that burns my heart each day. The other day I came in town, I was so hungry. The only thing I got was $1 on my hands. So I bought a banana. When I broke the banana was no good. In front of the guy, I discarded the banana because I could not eat because it was so soggy. And he did not even say, "Let me give you back one," or anything like that. So a lot of the times, rather than sometimes you say, "Oh, I'm at a loss." If you sell it when late in the afternoon, at a lower price, you still get something for it rather than it going into the bin and say, "Oh, I didn't sell anything at all." But again, that is how I was taught.
Yeah. And that the principle of early in the morning, you get the better price is still down to the cost. I think the lady we spoke about with the mango tree, some of these people do not have refrigeration. So like they're prepared to sell it at a lower price in the evening. But nowadays you find a lot of people, especially the people who operate in the markets, are not farmers, they're middlemen. And they don't have that level of tolerance that the farmers have. Any more, moderator?
I think that's it. I think that's it. It's just a lot of comments saying thank you and the session was wonderful. I'm sure you could see them. But yeah,
Yes,
that's it for us.
I appreciate the interaction. You guys made some fantastic questions and discussion points that helped the presentation flow. So thank you so much. I always appreciate this class. It's usually a lot of learning for me, as well as being able to impart some of my knowledge to you. So thank you so much, ladies, and looking forward to see you all on Thursday.
All right.
Thank you. Good night. Good night,
All
ladies.
right.
Stay tuned to
Good
the group
night.
chat. Thank you so much, Mr. Badal. It was
You're
wonderful and
welcome.
looking forward to seeing you on Thursday as well.